Friday Night Smackdown starts off with Jey Uso. He starts off with a promo. Then he ends up immediately calling up Cody Rhodes to discuss, potentially choosing him at Mania. Cody then comes out. Jey Uso ends up basically saying that he has two choices to make. And he ends up saying the first choice is standing across from Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania or standing next to him as World Heavyweight Champion. Cody responds. He basically ends up saying that this is Jay's moment. This is his opportunity. He mentions last year with him winning the Rumble, giving away, him losing his opportunity, but getting him back. And he basically saying that it's Jey Uso's chance, but he ends up saying that in order for his title reign to mean anything, that he has to go into Mania, he has to main event, and he also have to win, because if he does choose him, that the fun is basically over between the two. Then you end up getting Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. They come out. Jacob ends up saying that he ends up talking to Cody. He ends up saying that Cody Rhodes took the title from his family, and that he said now is the time for his family to get that title back. And then he addresses Jay. He ends up saying that even though Jey Uso is the one that is the one that won the Royal Rumble, he ends up saying that Jey Uso is basically not the person to get the title back to the family. Then this leads to Jey Uso attacking Tama Tonga. Jacob Fatu attacks Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, but eventually the babyfaces do end up getting an advantage and ends up standing tall, and this eventually leads to the main event of the show. This was a really good opening segment, and it really kind of brought me into the idea of potentially Cody and Jay. I still prefer the Gunther match. I understand why most people are not on the Gunther match. I think the reasoning is stupid because most people keep saying that they already fought. Like, we haven't seen wrestlers fought multiple times. Like, wrestlers can fight multiple times and it can still be entertaining. I don't know why people use that as an argument, but I'm still more interested in the Gunther idea, mainly because it's more of a heel-face dynamic, but this isn't really a bad option either. I don't know who the fans would cheer, though, or they may just cheer both, but it'll be a very interesting dynamic with having two baby faces face each other, but nonetheless, this was a really good opening segment. Afterwards, winning again Piper Niven versus Bianca Belair. Elimination qualifying match. Not gonna really speak about the match, really. Bianca Belair picks up the victory. Not really much to go over, but Bianca Belair, of course, was going to be in the Elimination Chamber. I don't really think I need to go that in depth on that match. Then after this, we end up getting DIY. They end up cutting a promo. They was basically, mentioning the Motor City Machine Guns, parading that, they beat them at the Royal Rumble, and basically saying that the Motor City Machine Guns championship opportunities are done. It's over for them. They get no more opportunities to face them. But then Pretty Deadly comes out. They interrupt them. And then you end up getting Nick Aldis, who ends up coming out, ends up giving Pretty Deadly an opportunity to basically get a number one contendership match against DIY in order for them to eventually get a title opportunity, which ends up transitioning into DIY versus Pretty Deadly. And Pretty Deadly actually picked up the victory by cheating, but they picked up the victory. And this leads to, I think next week. Yeah, next week they're going to get a title opportunity against DIY. I don't see them winning, but it should be very interesting how that plays out. And I did like this segment as well. I like that the tag team division is getting a lot of TV time, especially with it being 3 hours. And this show overall was really good patient. It didn't really feel like a 3-hour show. So I really love what they did here. I'm excited to see what they do next week. Afterwards, though, we end up getting Drew McIntyre versus Jimmy Uso versus LA Knight elimination qualifying match. Before I get into the match, these three cut a really amazing promo, especially when it was just Drew McIntyre and Jimmy Uso. I'm not going to go over the promo because I don't really think it really furthered anything, but nonetheless, it was a really solid promo, especially Jimmy Uso. Jimmy Uso was really good in this segment. Really good promo. They all did their thing before the match, because before the match, they ended up cutting a promo. They did a really good job. But during the match, this was a really solid match, but towards the end of the match, Jimmy Uso and LA Knight was in the ring. LA Knight was going for a BFT, but then Drew McIntyre comes in the ring and ends up hitting a Claymore and ended up making LA Knight hitting a BFT while he hit the Claymore. It was a very sick sequence. But Drew McIntyre ends up picking the victory. Only makes sense. This is going to be a very star-stacked Elimination Chamber. It only makes sense for Drew McIntyre to be in there, especially when you have guys like Punk. Probably Seth Rollins easily is going to make it because he's facing Finn Balor. Like, he always beats Finn Balor. So he's easily going to make it. Like, you got to have Drew McIntyre in that story. So it only makes sense for him to advance and for him to be in an Elimination Chamber. After this, we end up getting Kevin Owens. He ends up having a quick segment. He ended up having a little promo segment in his car. He addresses what happened on Monday Night Raw. He ends up saying that He basically ends up saying that the pain and suffering and the scars that he got on his body from the ladder match, he would have to live with that forever, and it's all Sami Zayn's fault. He ends up saying that you watched Cody Rhodes, brutally attack me and you did nothing. But in the Royal Rumble match, you rushed Roman Reigns when he was getting beat up. But for me, you did nothing. He ends up saying that you are a terrible friend. I would never forgive you, but I will make you pay. This was great. This was great. And I'm going to be honest. Not Cody Rhodes. Kevin Owens kind of has a point. Kind of. He low-key is making sense, but it is a different scenario to a degree because I also get Sami Zayn's perspective because in a one-on-one match, you're expecting your friend to be able to get the job done. Now, and then in a Royal Rumble, typically what you want to do when it comes to your friends, you typically help your friends so that way you could be in the final four or the final two. So I get where Kevin Owens is coming from, though, from his end. It's like you help the guy that that you supposed to hate, even though you betrayed him millions of times. But I get his point as well. So it makes sense from the story narrative, and he said basically what I ended up saying in my Royal Rumble review. So this was really good. I mean, and in my Monday Night Raw review, but this was really good. This was a really good segment. I can't wait for that feud. I'm gonna be very torn because I love Sami Zayn, but I also love Kevin Owens as well. After this, we ended up getting Carmelo Hayes versus Akira Tozawa. This match ended up getting set up by Nick Aldis, because basically Akira, because on the Royal Rumble, Carmelo attacked Akira, taking him out the Royal Rumble. So it makes sense. Now I'm gonna be honest. When this match got set up, I ain't gonna lie. I feared for Carmelo. I really did because bro, Carmelo just takes L's. All he does is take L's. So I was fearing that he was going to take an L to Akira, but thank God he didn't. He ended up picking up the victory. Now I'm not gonna say this is leading to him winning more matches because it's Akira Tozawa of all people, but it is a good sign that at least WWE has a certain level that they're willing to not have him lose to at least. So let's hope that eventually he picks up more wins against credible people, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. After this win against Charlotte Flair, she comes out, cuts a promo, and she basically insults the IWC. She basically ends up mentioning that do fans really love her or hate her. She ends up mentioning fans being obsessed with her, constantly talking about her, mentioning her surgeries, her last name. She mentioned, winning the Rumble, and she ends up basically insulting the IWC. She basically ends up saying that I don't know why you. She basically ended up saying that I don't understand why people are mad because you should have expected me to win the Rumble. Because she ends up saying that I was gone for 14 months. There's no way you thought that I wasn't going to win. She basically insults the IWC, which I somewhat agree with her on some things. I agree with her mainly with the Royal Rumble because, in my opinion, I didn't get mad at it because I felt like it was obvious, and plus, she was one of the best choices for winning the Royal Rumble, in my opinion. So that's just me. But she basically ends up roasting, internet fans and says that they don't know what they want because one minute y'all love me, then you hate me. Then Tiffany comes out and she ends up praising, Charlotte Flair, but then she ends up dissing her. You know how heels do. They, talk a big game praising the babyface and then they end up insulting the babyface. And then she ends up basically saying that she basically insulting Tiffany. Charlotte Flair basically ends up saying that no one cared about her and that she took over and now that she at the top and that WWE is the best it's ever been due to her being at the top. Then Charlotte Flair ends up basically kind of trying to one up her, basically trying to talk down on her like she's less than basically. Then she ends up saying that she ends up mentioning that if she thinks that she's the best, then she needs to get in line because every other woman thinks she's the best. Tiffany Stratton ends up responding back, ends up saying that look, she was in the back of the line for a while, now she's at the top. And she basically ends up saying that she is tired of being compared to Charlotte Flair and that she wants her to pick her at Mania so she could put, the comparisons to rest and to prove that she's better. Charlotte Flair ends up responding back, ends up saying that when she spoke to Rhea, she saw a kid, but when she speaks to Tiffany Stratton, she sees a child. Now, my face was very confused because if I'm not mistaken, a kid and a child is like the same thing. So I don't know where she was going with that. But she basically ends up saying that if she wants her to pick her at Mania, then she needs to get on her knees and beg. Then this lead to Nia Jax coming out, confirming that she has a title match against Tiffany Stratton next week. So next week we're going to get Tiffany versus Nia, but then this ends up transitioning into Candice LeRae and Alexa Bliss elimination qualifying match. I actually like this segment. I enjoyed it for what it was. And I do like the dynamic because it looks like they're continuing having it looks like they're going to have a heel dynamic, which I actually agree with. Because most people are confused and be like, how would that work? I'm like, a heel dynamic is no different than a face dynamic. It's just two bad guys going against each other. Like, it can work. I like the dynamic. Plus, Tiffany Stratton is going to be the babyface anyway with the fan reaction. So I don't think it's going to be that hard to pull off. So I'm hoping this is the Mania match. I think it's going to be the Mania match. Let's just hope that they execute and they go with this direction. After this, we end up getting Alexa Bliss versus Candice LeRae elimination qualifying match. Alexa Bliss picked up the victory. The match was a bit rough to watch, but to be fair, Alexa Bliss this is our first match coming back, so I'm not really going to hold that against her. Now, the only thing I am upset about is that it looks like she's going to be on Smackdown because they end up doing like the Wyatt 6 like interruptions in the middle of her match, and she comes out with the doll. And she ends up hitting the sister Abigail during the match to close the match, the end of the match. So it looks like she's going to be a part of the Wyatt 6, which I'm not really that excited for. I kind of wanted the goddess gimmick back, but it is what it is. We'll see where this goes, but I'm not really that excited for it, if I'm being honest. Now we end up getting the Street Profits. They end up having a very great vignette. And basically, they end up saying what I end up saying in my Royal Rumble review. Basically, they ended up mentioning, DIY attacking them and basically saying that the reason why they attacked them. And then they also end up saying that they're tired of constantly getting screwed out of opportunities and that they want all the smoke. This vignette was amazing, especially Angelo Dawkins. This was great. They basically are a pissed off Street Profits in a more serious version. I love this. I really love this. I'm hoping that the plan is to put the tag titles on them. I'm hoping that's the plan. But we'll see where this goes, but this was a great vignette. I really love what they did. This was an amazing vignette. I can't wait to see them in action. Then we get the main event. Jey Uso, Cody Rhodes versus Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga. The babyfaces ends up picking up the victory. Not going to really go over the match because the main thing was what happened after the match, which was Solo Sikoa making his return and attacking Cody Rhodes. This is interesting. This leads to possibly multiple things that can happen. I don't know if this is setting up the Elimination Chamber, which could potentially happen. What is the deal with Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa? Are they still on the same team? Or are they against each other? There's so many questions that need to be answered, which is a good thing, actually, because this could lead to multiple things, and I'm very intrigued. This was a great episode of Friday Night SmackDown. This is what we've been needing on SmackDown. We've been needing this. This is what we've been needing on SmackDown. This was a great episode, but you guys let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.